I did not want to be a dermatologist. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I didn't even think dermatology was a real doctor. I like the concept of, I love problem solving. I love the mystery of medicine, the clues and putting things together. And I didn't think I got that with dermatology because as a physician, as a medical doctor, you can go through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, even 4 years of residency as a general doctor, a family practice or internal medicine doctor, and not do a single day of dermatology. Not
Hey everyone, welcome. This is Heike, and if you're feeling stuck or facing obstacles on your health and fitness journey, then I just got the thing for you. Join me for a free 20-minute Spark breakthrough call. This is a no strings attached conversation helping you cutting through the confusion and the noise to find clarity and direction. During this complimentary 20-minute session, I'll help you identify the key action step that will empower you to excel in midlife. If you're interested, check out the link in the show notes. When we're thinking about our health, wellness, and fitness here through the Pursue Your Spark podcast, one thing that might not pop into your mind right away is the health of our skin. So we are super lucky to have an amazing guest here with us today who shares our passion about health, skincare, fitness, nutrition, and the crucial role of environmental well-being. So please meet Dr. Jen Haley, a true pioneer in the world of dermatology, nutrition, and holistic health. With an inspiring educational journey from the Cornell University to becoming a revered officer in the United States Navy, Dr. Haley has touched lives far and wide, from the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. to the serene landscapes of Pearl Harbor. And now through her private practice and enlightening podcast, Radiance Revealed. Dr. Haley isn't just a dermatologist. She's a visionary who seamlessly blends the science of skin health with the art of living well. She is here to share her profound insights on how integrating wellness into our daily lives isn't just about looking good, but feeling incredible from the inside out. So let's get started and unlock the secrets to true radiance with Dr. Haley. Hey, everybody, I'm super excited to introduce Dr. Jen Haley to you today. And she's here to talk about skincare. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So happy to be here.
Now, I dug a little bit around in your history and I read, and I was super excited about this because we had several U.S. Air Force fighter pilots on the show here on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And you're an officer in the United States Navy, or were. Tell us how you got into that.
Sure. So right before we started recording, we were talking about the time of year and sometimes wicked winters, depending on where you live. So in my undergraduate, I went to Cornell University, which is in upstate New York, that has similar weather to where your son lives in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and very dark, very cold, just long winters without much sun. So after college, after Cornell, I made a commitment to go somewhere warmer for medical school. So I drew a line across the United States and I decided I'd go anywhere in Maryland or South. And I actually accidentally applied to a military medical school. And I've always been an athlete. I've always been into fitness. And when I received the application back, I realized it was the military. I can go to medical school and also be an officer in the United States military serving other people. I said, you know what? This would be great because I can travel, I could dive, I could fly. I'll never get bored. I can do other things in tropical medicine besides just being a doctor. So it was just serendipitous and it worked out really well for me.
Yeah, and I saw that you also studied here in Bethesda, Maryland, which is literally next to where I currently live.
Yeah, I did. I did. I ended up training there and then I did my residency in San Diego. And then I came back and I worked at the US Capitol at the Office of the Attending Physician there and also taught the residents. And then I went to Hawaii. So I had a pretty good career and I've been in private practice now since 2009.
Okay, yeah. Now that does not sound bad at all. All the beautiful spots you just hit there.
Right? Life just, life offers things to all of us and we just have to say a yes sometimes and it works out.
Oh, I love it. Now, you talk about compassionate patient care. What is that and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can describe what it means for me. Uh, Basically being a listener, listening to what somebody wants and putting aside our personal, maybe preconceived notions or personal projections and truly listening to understand where someone's coming from. I'm no longer in clinical care. I don't work in clinical care now. I'm at a point in my life where I just want to teach and give back all of the knowledge that I've accumulated and teach people not to make the mistakes I've made and rush through life. And that's where I'm at now. But while I was in clinical practice, it's easy to get caught up and, not give people the attention that they need. So, especially the way healthcare is, which I don't want to get into that politically, but it's just about looking at the whole person, understanding where they're coming from and what matters to them, right? Not just giving them a label and going through an algorithm because a computer can do that. So as we become more and more of an AI society, these connections, this personal attention is going to be higher, more highly valued.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally relate to that. All the stories that I hear from my clients and also what I experience as a customer or as a patient of where you can really see the difference in the doctors and the care you receive. And it's not necessarily, like you said, we don't want to go into politics based on the dollars you're paying for your healthcare, but that somebody really listens to your needs and what it is that's going on, like you said, with your whole body, not just, oh, I stubbed my toe and I broke it, but what else is going on around that toe? Why did you break that toe? Just to use a very simple example. And it's really refreshing when you find somebody who is interested in you and more about you. So I love that explanation because I saw that you talked about this and I wondered what that might be like from your point of view. And
It's so much more also, Heike. It's looking at how to empower someone to take charge of their own health. So often we reach the medical system and you're given a medication or a response to a disease. But I prefer to take the approach of, okay, your acne, your eczema, your psoriasis, whatever condition you may be having is a representation of your internal health, maybe your mindset, maybe your gut health. So along the way of treating someone with traditional medicine, I'll often plant seeds about, diet, lifestyle, mindset, our belief system.
yeah.
There's a lot of complexities to humans, and we have much more control than we often believe we have over our health. And that's what I want people to realize.
Yeah. You talk about that the skin is the largest organ in our body that encompasses everything. And that it is, like you just said, the window to our internal health. How, from your perspective as a dermatologist, does it reflect our skin when we talk about the window to our internal health in regard to our skin, our skin?
Yeah, sure. So just like I fell into the military, I also fell into dermatology. So I did not want to be a dermatologist. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I didn't even think dermatology was a real doctor. I like the concept of, I love problem solving. I love the mystery of medicine, the clues and putting things together. And I didn't think I got that with dermatology because as a physician, as a medical doctor, you can go through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, even 4 years of residency as a general doctor, a family practice or internal medicine doctor, and not do a single day of dermatology, not one day.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's an elective. It's an elective thing that you can choose to do. And one day, ironically, during a pediatric rotation, I was forced to choose an elective. And it was either going to be cardiology or dermatology. And I'm not good at cardiology. So I said, okay, I'll just do dermatology. It'll be an easy day. It's not like a real doctor anyway. That's really what I thought. And I didn't know what I was missing. So I was forced to go to that clinic that afternoon and my jaw dropped. I was in awe how we can look at someone's skin and understand they had a heart condition, they had diabetes, they had a gut condition. The skin is your largest visible organ. We don't need to do anything invasive. And things that can present on the skin. We have over 2,000 diagnoses in dermatology. And many of those conditions represent something else that's going on inside the body. A lot of it we still don't know, but we're learning more and more every day. So just by looking at the skin, you can get clues as to what's going on below and then ask a few questions like, how's your gut? Like, how often do you go to the bathroom? Do you have any diarrhea or constipation? Oh, your rosacea is probably linked to a gut issue. And then as we fix the gut, your mood gets better because the gut, skin, and brain are all correlated. It's
Mhm.
amazing. And then as your brain is better, you have better moods, you make better decisions, you're motivated, you have better relationships, and your whole life can evolve. So that's where I find being able to treat the skin really empowering in changing someone's entire life, not just their skin, but actually their relationships, their life, their overall health.
Yeah, you talking about gut health, and I want to also talk a little bit about the hormone changes that happen in midlife. But I have microscopic colitis, and I can tell you that my skin does reflect when I have another unexpected outburst. Although I'm very careful with what I'm eating, I know what triggers my most of the time my inflammation, but it is so visible, especially on my, interestingly enough, on my hands and my feet when I have an inflammation of my microscopic colitis. And I was thinking when I was preparing for the interview, I was like, oh, I got to tell Jen that I have really funny rashes and swelling only on the top of my feet and the top of
Mm.
my hands when I have an outbreak. And everybody I talk to looks at me and says, that is weird. I'm like, no, because I have a leaky gut, so all the toxins go somewhere, and they seem to really like my tops of my hands and my feet for whatever reason on top of my skin.
Right. Yeah. And that goes back to compassionate care. So when I was trained, we were told that diet played no role in anything that affects your skin. No role whatsoever. This was 20 years ago, it didn't play any role. But I listened to patients like, oh, when I eat this, this happens. When when my gut does this, this happens. And that changed and slowly evolved my practice. Now, I did study nutrition undergrad. So I was interested in that to begin with, because going back to medical school, we don't learn any nutrition either. So it always was curious to me, like, why do we expect a medication that we take in our mouth to work in our body, but yet the food doesn't affect us? Like, how is it possible? Like, our body doesn't work that way. So, just from a common sense perspective, the gut is really one of the main entryways to the body, just like the skin is one of our major detox organs. So, if something's inflamed and our body wants to detoxify and purge it out, it's going to use the skin.
Yeah. And as I can tell with my feet and my hands, it is the weirdest thing. But it happens, and I don't know what to do. But like I said, not I don't always find the trigger. Sometimes it's just stress. But let's go back to the diet a little bit more before we dive into the hormones. Let's talk about what would you say women in midlife should eat to help their gut, number one, and number two, help their skin to get that, well, we always aspire to vital, glowing skin. And when I looked at you and checked you out on social media, I was I was reminded of a client of mine had actually said about a year ago, you should have a dermatologist on the show and talk about it. And I said, oh, I don't know. And then we talked a little bit more about it. And I said, yeah, now I just have to find the right person. And I found, in my opinion, the right person with you, Jen, who has a holistic approach. Because at that point, I had a mole on my face and I went to a local dermatologist, and she looked like a porcelain doll. And that's how I see your face and the way your complexion is. And I said, Jen is the right person for the podcast. So how does our uh, nutrition affect that glow, and how can we work more towards that?
Yeah. Oh, well, there's so many layers to that. So I could look more like a porcelain doll if I didn't go outside all the time, but I do spend a significant amount of time outside. And like I mentioned, I live in Arizona, so the sun can be very harsh here, but I
Okay.
always wear a hat and I wear a sunscreen. That's all I have on my face right now is just sunscreen, tinted sunscreen. So, I mean, sunscreen every single day with zinc oxide, SPF 30 or higher. I advocate you can find that all over. But as far as orally, it's quite fascinating because when you look at polyphenols in plants, they make these polyphenols to protect themselves from the elements, right? And
Yeah.
when we consume those, they also impart a really nice glow in our skin. So I love foods with astaxanthin, like in wild Alaskan salmon, or you can take it as a supplement. I love polyphenols. So the more colorful the foods, the better.
Mhm.
The more real food we eat, the better. That means things with one ingredient, avocado, banana, 100% grass-fed meat and grass-finished meat, things like that, not labels. Because going back to gut health, we are a large percent of our body is bacteria and other microbes, archaea, other things that we need. We need them. They allow us to metabolize things properly. They help with different metabolic processes. And when we consume processed foods that can stay on the shelf for a long time,
Mhm.
that have preservatives in them so that the foods don't get spoiled, those preservatives are killing our gut microbiome, just like
Mhm.
antibiotics would. And it throws off the balance of what our body wants to have. So the more real food, the better we're going to be. Sorry, I don't have like a fancy plan to sell anyone. It's just eating real food. And I think that everyone's genetics are different. So some people can be more plant-based, some people can be more meat-based. I personally believe in uh, ruling your life cyclically. So every season, every cycle, we change our diet, we change our skincare, we change our exercise. I'm very big believer in cycles because even though salmon and broccoli are very healthy, if you just have salmon and broccoli sprouts every single day, you're not going to be a healthy person. We have to cycle. We're meant to cycle and constantly fill in the gaps. And then also every food has some toxins. So chicken
Mhm.
tends to be high in arsenic. Fish tends to be high in mercury. Chocolate is high in cadmium, and we're accumulating these. So we want to give our body a chance to detoxify while we cycle foods. But typically high polyphenol and I like astaxanthin and then fish oils. So our skin, we have a bilipid membrane in our skin that holds water in between. So if you're having a really low fat diet, your skin's going to look dry and parched and sallow. So we want healthy fats, healthy non-inflammatory fats, like no seed oils, olive oil, avocado. Um,
So no flaxseed.
I'm not really against flaxseed so much, but it's like the in between and it gets rancid really easy from my
True.
understanding.
True.
So it depends on how you use it, like,
Mhm.
and some people I think metabolize it better than other people. So like as far as like omega 3s, I prefer them from fish than from flax. But if you're someone who doesn't eat fish, it's better than nothing, or it's better than canola or corn or sunflower. Like I don't live in a black and white world. It's very gray. And I'm really a compound effect person. So like if I go eat some Haagen-Dazs, I'm like, one pint of Haagen-Dazs over the year is going to make zero difference, but every day it's going to make a difference. So just
Yeah.
enjoy it, right? So having healthy fats is really important. Being hydrated so your urine is clear is important. And then we mentioned the polyphenols and the astaxanthin, which I love, and then keeping your sugar as low as possible. So, like, I've kind of been naughty since the holidays, and I have this Freestyle Libre I'm going to put on my arm. I try to put a continuous glucose monitor on once every 6 months or so, just to kind of fine tune my diet because certain things that might not affect you affect me a lot. Like fruits jump up my glucose really high.
Mhm.
Rice jumps up my glucose high. So knowing that, I can make better decisions. If I go eat sushi, I eat more sashimi and
Mhm.
less sushi because I know how it affects me, but it might not affect someone else. But having a very well-maintained blood glucose is essential. And I aim for getting your hemoglobin A1C checked once a year and keeping it under 5 for sure.
Yep. Yep. Now, in regard to the sugar, is it simply for the gut health, or how does it relate to the skin? I mean, this is a kind of a catch-22 question, but what do you would you say?
Yeah, I mean, sugar is not a nutrient. So our body is smart, and our body, if we have a complex carbohydrate or even a vegetable and obviously a fruit, our body can convert that into fast, glucose and fructose and fast metabolizing carbohydrates that we can use. So it's not that we just eat sugar and it turns into sugar. Carbohydrates in general will turn into sugar. We could even turn protein into sugar. We have that ability in our body. And when we're having high levels of sugar in our bloodstream, quicker than our body has the ability to use it or push it into the muscle, which is the storage form, the muscle and the liver have glycogen stores, which will store the sugar. The more it circulates around the body, basically what's going to happen is um, these advanced glycation end products, or these AGEs, which I'm sure most people have heard about. These AGEs, these advanced glycation, and glycation is just sort of like means sugar in Latin. We like to talk Latin, so we sound smart. But these advanced glycation end products circulate around the body and they bind to protein. And a lot of things in our body are made of protein, everything from the blood vessels to the collagen in our skin, right? So as these molecules bind to protein, the protein isn't as pliable. So if you pull up the skin on your hand, it should bounce right back. So as these AGEs bind to the protein, it makes it stiff. So when you smile and you let go, the wrinkles stick around a little longer. Things don't bounce back as much. And then even further down the line of what happens in your body, there's receptors for AGEs that set off a whole inflammatory cascade of a lot of inflammation everywhere. And that's why maybe your joints just start hurting. And over 10 years, you don't realize. But then when you clean up your life and you clean up your diet, you're like, oh, my body doesn't hurt so much. I wake up and I don't have joint stiffness. Like our body has the ability to repair and to renew itself. We just have to give it the tools and get out of the way?
I was just laughing and inwardly smiling too, saying, okay, listeners, and you thought you got everything just about the skin. You're getting way more than you were bargaining for.
Right.
Because it makes sense. And I believe people need to hear that. Even they may not know all the Latin words, but you're explaining it so that they can relate to that. Whatever the process is of what it does to the body. Because I think that we're also bombarded with a lot of words that are big words and complicated words that nobody knows, but you're making it so that they hear the big words and then you say, oh, this is what it is. So our listeners understand what the process is and how they can translate this, like with the sugar. Oh, she explained now, if I eat too much sugar, this is what I do. Glucose, I can measure that way. Oh, the result is my skin does not bounce back as well. And I think that's super important. Thank you for that, Jen, that you explain that in both ways. So the people that know all the fancy words are also honored with the knowledge that you present to us. And as well as the people that say, I really don't know about this, but now I know how this works.
Right. And I mean, in a practical way, because that's what matters at the end of the day, like how does this knowledge affect our lives? So in a practical way, like often we'll say, okay, I hate the word diet, but like just say, oh, I failed my diet and I just started eating sugar. I'm going to just finish the whole bag, right? Well, don't, because of that compound effect we talked about. If a little bit just elevates your blood sugar a little bit, that's not going to cause as much harm as if you have a huge load of sugar in your bloodstream. That's going to cause a lot more damage. And we don't really know if those AGEs are reversible. So some would describe it as like slowly cooking the body from the inside out. So we want to cook it as slow as possible. So if you do happen to eat a lot of carbs or some sugar, get some fiber in there because that will slow down the absorption from your gut into the bloodstream. And that's why fruit tends to be tolerated by a lot of people because it naturally has fiber in it. The other thing is go for a walk. Take your loved ones, connect with them, go for a walk. I sometimes if I'm in my office and I'm busy and I don't have time to go for a walk, I'll just do 50 jumping jacks because then you're metabolizing that sugar and kind of getting your body to start using it or storing it. And the other thing is go to the gym and lift weights because even though you're not burning calories lifting weights as much as you would be doing cardio, The muscle is your storage for the glucose. So when you have good muscle stores and you eat sugar, it gets stored in that muscle quickly and doesn't hang around in the bloodstream causing the damage.
So that's a good point. Listen up to this, guys, because I always talk about strength training, especially in midlife. We need to pump iron, Dynabands, body weight exercises, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is, but strength training, work in the body against resistance to create more of that muscle mass that, like Jen says, is now able to store the glucose, and it's not hanging around doing all kinds of other wonderful things we don't want it to do, like raise your insulin levels or spike your insulin levels. But when we also talk about, I want to go back to the hormones, because that's one of the things that anybody over 50, I keep hearing about my saggy skin. I got those age spots. I have liver spots. My skin is not as perky. Um, I think that's pretty much sums it all up. Help, tell us, what should we do? And I don't want, I want to talk about like procedures that are out there that you tell us if they're helpful or not. But what do we think about that when we hear that? What do you think about that? What would you tell the listener about being in that dilemma and don't want to buy into the I always want to stay young pharmacy?
It's tough because there's a fine line, right, between a healthy perspective and wanting to look good and then overdoing it. So everyone makes that personal decision for themselves. And there's a whole way that we evaluate someone aesthetically. I just did a podcast episode on this on my podcast, and I teach entire weekend courses to other doctors on this. But basically, there's four main components we look at when we're evaluating someone's skin. So going back to your first point, the liver spots, the age spots. Okay. So the lentigines, we call them a lentigo, which is basically a sunspot. And they're the brown spots on your face that show up in areas that are chronically sun exposed. So often when I'm doing a full skin check on a patient, I'll look up to their upper inner arm. Does it, or do you have YouTube or is it just audio?
No, it's video too.
Okay, great. So if you're looking at my upper inner arm, it basically looks like a 2-year-old's bottom, right? It doesn't look like my 52-year-old self because that area doesn't go in the sun. So that's natural aging of the skin. Maybe we'll lose a little elasticity, but we're not seeing the color variation like we do elsewhere. So when we're young and our melanocytes, which are our pigment cells, when we're young and we get a tan, our melanocytes are all they all work the same. They're all high school track athletes. They could all keep up with each other and they give you a nice brown, even tan, right?
Mhm.
As we get older, they're not as effective. There are some people falling behind on the track team, some people running ahead, and the melanocytes, some will pigment and some will not pigment. And that's why we get a splotchy sort of irregular pigmentation. So we'll have dark brown areas with areas of no tanning where the melanocytes just died. And we get kind of a splotchy brown look to our skin from chronic sun exposure because our body becomes less efficient with tanning. And that's what causes the liver spots. It's basically one melanocyte that feeds into 32 keratinocytes. So one melanocyte basically sends its pigment to 32 of the top layer of the skin and it leaves a brown spot. And the other areas don't pigment as well, and they don't. So the best treatment for that, in my opinion, would be something called an IPL or a photofacial or maybe a pico laser. Like laser is going to be the best and quickest treatment for sunspots, age spots, lentigines. But you want to get checked by a board certified dermatologist because not all brown spots are created equal. Some brown spots may be cancerous. They may be precancerous, right? They may not just be a sunspot. So you need to make sure the diagnosis is correct before you're treating something that could be potentially malignant. Then there are conditions like melasma or post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which we use these long words, which is basically a brown spot that's left there after an acne spot. And that's treated differently because those pigment types are treated differently. So texture and tone can be taken care of by laser, skincare at home, just like you'd brush your teeth at the dentist at home, you still want to do skincare at home on a regular basis, in addition to reaching for your dermatologist, as well as like chemical peels, anything that's going to help to resurface and help with the texture of the skin will help with pigment.
Mhm.
And then as far as the there's so many layers to this. But the next thing we really look at is the elasticity and the collagen health of your skin. So you want to look at it in two ways. Number one is to help prevent degradation, to help prevent breakdown of the collagen and the elastic tissue. And the most common thing that we're exposed to that we have control over is UV exposure. So
Mhm.
that's why I recommend wearing tinted sunscreen for women who struggle with pigmentation, or at least zinc oxides containing sunscreen, avoiding the chemicals, but zinc oxide, SPF 30 or higher. That's all you have to look for in a form that you like.
Good tip.
And do that every single day. And what I notice if you're looking on the video is I've seen probably over 100,000 patients over the last 25 years. And when you wipe sunscreen on from center to outwards, I see tons of skin cancers out here on the
Oh.
periphery of the face and the neck. So I recommend putting your sunscreen on when you're still in your bra, if you're a woman, and rubbing up your neck from the outside of your face to the inside of your face, because we're always going to make sure we have coverage there, and blending inward and doing that, every single morning just for incidental sun exposure. Because even if we say we're not going to be outside today, we're at least walking to and from the car 10 minutes, to the mailbox, walking the dog, going to the store, 10 minutes a day. That's 50 plus hours a year in the sun. So when
Mhm.
our face and our neck and the back of our hands are getting 50 plus hours of sun a year, that really adds up. Things, obvious things like smoking, that's really terrible for skin. Anyone who looks online at twins that one smokes and one doesn't, that's a really big issue. The sugar we talked about. So preventing degradation and then boosting production, things like microneedling in the office, laser can help with that, and then retinoids, vitamin A products at night. And we want to
Mm.
cycle our skincare morning and night, depending on what the circadian clock is of our natural processes in the skin. So in the day, it's protection, and at night, it's renewal. So we're following the circadian clock when we're using our skincare as well.
That's a very interesting fact. I had not heard that you're breaking, I was thinking breaking it down into seasons like spring and winter, but even breaking it down throughout the day that you're nourishing your skin in different ways.
Yes, absolutely. So the very, very basic is wash in the morning, wash at night. If you're only going to wash once a day, at night is more important because you want to get all of the toxins and the pollution and everything and all the dirt off your face from the day, and the makeup, obviously. But if you can wash twice a day, that's great. Vitamin C, a good high quality product in the morning, and a retinol at night, and then moisturizer at night, sunscreen in the morning. That's the very basic that I recommend for everyone. But yes, you want to do that daily. But then in the winter months, when it's less humidity, the houses are drier, we want to add hydration. At the end of summer, I usually add more exfoliation before people start to dry up to get rid of some of that sun damage. And we can do these cycles. And then even during the menstrual cycle, we can work with hormones to adjust things, because there's certain times during a woman's cycle when the skin is more resilient, and there's certain times when the skin is more sensitive.
That's good. And I think from what I'm hearing, the best advice to get is go to your dermatologist and get also products that go along the line. Because when I would go into a store and I see all those products, I would not know what to choose. And everybody sells me something different, whether I want to be younger or have less wrinkles or whatever. And I don't know, based on what you even told me, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I need to see a dermatologist and get really products that are geared along those lines, because I do not want to add more toxins to my skin as I buy products.
And just keep it basic. Like, it takes about 12 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks, depending on your age, to get from the bottom layer, the basal cell layer, to the top layer of your skin. So anything you do to your skin takes 8 to 12 weeks to see results. So the biggest mistake I see with people coming with bags of products is they're not giving anything time, and they're wasting hundreds or thousands of dollars. So I'd rather someone start with a very basic three-step in the morning, cleanser, C, sunscreen, three-step at night, cleanser, retinol, moisturizer, maybe eye cream at night. and do that for 3 months. See how you're doing. And then we can kind of focus in on things. Okay, let's add an exfoliator a few times a week. Okay, let's get the pigmentation that's not quite responding. Okay, let's add some peptides, but really keep it basic. Give it time to work with your natural body cycle. We don't do well when we fight nature. We try to. We think we're smarter than nature as humans. We're not.
You know, on the other hand, too, I'm thinking, okay, yes, we're getting old. Yes, we get more wrinkles, uh, and more folds in our body, but we can still nourish that skin that embrace it has these wrinkles and folds and even discolorations, and give it more love than we think we could, and not always think, okay, and no judgment there. If you want Botox, knock yourself out. If you want whatever treatment, knock yourself out. I'm no judge, and like you said, Jen, it's a personal choice and everybody chooses what they want. But just think about your skin. What can you feed your skin, as you said earlier, from the inside? Healthy foods, non-processed food, lots of healthy fats, hydrate, uh, drink lots of water, whatever kind of water. And I prefer herbal teas. So I love herbal teas and green teas that are also good for my skin. So think also from it, then from Jen's perspective on the outside, what else can you nourish from the outside to bring the two together? What do you say?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a couple points. So going back to tea, so hibiscus is wonderful for the skin.
I
Yep.
did not
And
know that.
yep, spearmint has been shown in scientific studies to help with acne. If you're prone to acne, especially during certain times of your cycle, you can bump up some spearmint tea. And then I love dandelion root for detoxification, for enhancing liver detoxification, or even burdock root to help metabolize some estrogens and to help with liver detoxification as well, because we want to keep that liver healthy because it basically detoxifies everything we come into contact with so that we can run more efficiently.
Yeah.
And then going back to the skincare, right? So, yes, we are all getting older, but the radiance of an older woman is so magnificent because we have this wisdom and we have this clarity and we have this confidence. So it's about how you carry yourself and how comfortable you are with yourself. And that's what I call radiance, which I think is more powerful than two-dimensional beauty that you see in a magazine, right? And that's attainable by everyone, by the woman who's 100 years old in the village. She has that awe, that power of awe. And I just got chills as I said that. So my goal with everyone that I work with is that I want them to eventually become intuitive where they know what works for their body. So we give guidelines, but once you get familiar with yourself and you check in with yourself, you know what is going to work best for you. So going back to, so the ritual of taking care of your skin every day, gently massaging yourself and touching your lymphatics to help drainage, that's a process that everyone should have. It's not because, oh, I want to look younger or, oh, I want to look more beautiful. That might be the end result, but it's about nurturing and taking care of yourself and having some time for yourself. That's kind of where the take I have on that. So as far as intersecting outside and inside, was that your question? I'm so sorry. I went on a
No, no, you
tangent.
tied in right with that. It's like
Okay.
I mean, you're beautiful as you are, listeners. But you can do a little more, and that doesn't have to cost a lot of money or take a lot of time. But it's just like when you were saying, "Oh, I'm eating healthy foods. I'm eating organic. I'm really paying attention to this." Don't neglect what it does to your skin, since we're talking skin today, and how, like you said, any woman can look even more radiant by just taking a little bit better care of their personal needs, which are, as we just said, very individual of what one might do, but the result is equally stunning and feels good. It's just I think the feel good factor when you look in the mirror and you say, "Wow, look at my skin is just so happy today." That's what I would say.
Definitely. And I mean, I want everyone to take out of this, like you deserve it because especially as women, we make sure that we're there for everyone else or we don't hesitate to spend money on other things, yet we sometimes will hesitate to do it for ourselves. So just recognize that you're worth it. Okay, you're worth the time, you're worth the attention. And the other point I wanted to say is if someone does struggle with acne, it's not necessarily that you're doing something horrible that no one else is doing, right? It's just the way your body's preparing to, is representing it to the outside. So
Mhm.
that's the other thing. But there are ways to help, naturally as well as medically get it under control. I just don't want people to take the opposite approach, like, oh, if you get a breakout on your hands, it's all your fault, because that's not really true. Like some of us have internal pains and some of us have outward way of showing things.
Yeah, and that's also when you would look for a professional that you can easily talk to and have your very individual situation evaluated and looked at, like, but somebody like Jen who knows um, fitness, nutrition, skincare, gut health, where you really get a value for your visit around all around you, not just part of you. Yeah.
It's hopefully becoming more and more common nowadays. The other thing I wanted to mention about exercise, when you just said what you said, is when you think about the nutrients we're consuming, right?
Mhm.
We're choosing to eat nature's harvest, right? The best foods that we can find in the soil that we have. Garden if you can yourself. You have fermented foods if you can as well. And the only way that those nutrients are going to get to our skin and the rest of our organs is if we have a good blood supply. So we want to make sure those blood vessels are open and they're
Mhm.
not clogged, and we have a good blood supply. So that's why exercise is really important in that vasomotor like stability and like
Stability.
making sure we have the blood supply to deliver the nutrients and to deliver the oxygen. And that's why as people get older on their legs, the lower part of their legs, the furthest part from their heart, I'll often see loss of hair, um, nail fungus and other deviations of the skin that we don't see close to the heart because by the time the blood gets down there, it doesn't have nutrients and oxygen left to deliver, or the blood vessels are closed off there. And then we have to remove all the metabolic waste products, remove the carbon dioxide, remove all the waste. So we're really dependent on the blood vessels at the end of the day to deliver all the nutrients we're going to be taking in.
But the feet too, you can get cancer on your feet. You can get all kinds of problems, like you said, the fungus for the nails, because there is not enough nutrients or blood supply, if I interpret that correctly.
Yeah, I mean it's complex, and obviously we don't understand everything we say we understand now in medicine, but it tends to be more genetic because like a husband and a wife that can rub feet at night in bed, one will have a nail fungus and one won't. So fungus is everywhere. It doesn't gross me
Um,
out because I know it's everywhere, and some people's bodies just don't mind it being there. But if
yeah.
you have a good blood supply, your immune cells can recognize the fungus as being foreign and kick it out, as opposed to if you don't have a good blood supply, the immune cells don't kind of get there to say like this is foreign, it doesn't belong here. So
Mm,
when people who have stasis dermatitis and poor blood supply to the legs, chronic smokers, or just have a lot of cardiovascular disease and
yeah.
peripheral vascular disease, they tend to have toenail fungus all the time. And that's an entry point for other organisms to come and get cellulitis and cause a lot of problems down the road. So,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
everything's related. Everything that you do matters.
It really does. I have one final question from one of the listeners, and that is about the vampire facial. What the heck is that and what does it do? I was like, I have no idea. Never heard of
Okay.
it.
Okay, so I'm not very good with these TikTok names, but my understanding of the vampire facial is that you do PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma.
Hmm.
So basically, platelet-rich plasma is when you draw the blood and then we centrifuge it down and we take the platelet rich part, right? And you put it back on the skin. Now, it doesn't absorb very well unless you do microneedling first. So
Mm.
typically, you can do microneedling, which is basically uh what's it called when you aerate the grass? When you have a large
Ah,
lawn and you're aerating the grass, you're not pulling out plugs of skin, but you're making teeny little micro holes in the
holes.
skin. Yeah, and I talk about this on my podcast if you want to listen, but basically you make small puncture stamp like holes in the skin and then you could put the platelet rich plasma on there. And it contains stem cells in your body. And the stem cells that you put in there don't necessarily create fresh skin, but they send little signals to the stem cells in your skin to create fresh skin.
Okay.
the catch 22 with that is over the age of 40, our stem cells aren't as good anymore as someone who's younger. So the people that need it the most don't often have the best stem cells. So there's something called exosomes, which this is completely off label, but exosomes are basically the messengers. They're not stem cells, but they're messengers from someone younger umbilical cord stem cells. They're the messengers. They're encapsulated little envelopes. So it's sort of like if you sent me an envelope, you're a stem cell and you're sending me an envelope. You're not coming to my house, you're just sending the envelope. So exosomes are little envelopes that stimulate the stem cells to produce fresh skin. And that's
Ah.
what a lot of us are starting to do. I mean, I've used it for like 6 or 7 years, but it's so off label. It's very controversial. And I love them. There's even skincare now with exosomes in them. There's one called Plated. There's a couple other companies coming out, and they're basically another way to go. So we're building a house
Mm-hmm.
here, right? So when you build a house, you can't just use a hammer. You need a lot of components. So when we're looking at skin and how we can make skin more rejuvenated. We're not changing you. We're not turning you into anyone else. We're just rejuvenating you, so that you look as good as you feel, because
Yep.
obviously we're all feeling really good into our 50s, 60s, and 70s and beyond. And, but our skin lives in an environment of toxins and weather, right? So we want to kind of maintain that envelope as much as we can. There's different ways to go about it. So we're talking about protection with the vitamin C and the sunscreen. We're talking about rejuvenation with the retinols and hydration, and then the exosomes or the platelet rich plasma are other ways to deliver. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think the platelet rich plasma penetrates unless the skin barrier is broken. It's nothing
Ah.
you do at home, it's something you do in the office. But in my opinion, if like, let's just say 10 is a facelift, which I think we all want to avoid someone cutting us, right? So if 10 is a facelift and 0 is doing nothing, I kind of think that a vampire facial is like a 2. I
Okay.
think if you do it with microneedling, it's like a 3.8. It's something you can do once a quarter, like
Mm-hmm.
cleaning your teeth. It's not going to give you veneers, right? It's like a good maintenance, it's a good rejuvenation, but it's not going to, like, no one's going to say, "Wow, what happened?"
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a maintenance sort of thing. Does that answer the question sufficiently?
Yeah, yeah. I just heard that word, and I knew it was. But what about the platelet-rich plasma? And I was like, I ask you because I've heard this, and that was asked, and I said I don't know. So Jen will at least explain it, which you did. But I have one more question for you.
Sure.
And that brings us back to the sunlight because you'd said, protect your skin from the sun, but we're all told that we need vitamin D. Go outside 15 minutes a day, expose your skin to the sun. How does it tie in with your beliefs and teachings?
hmm I'd say about 20, 25 years ago, I was really dogmatic on this, and no, sun is bad. It's not that clear and simple, right? And so we could do a whole hour on this topic, but the key points basically are that I think our body needs light even more than vitamin D. So this is where like the world isn't black and white, going back to like we're living in the gray zone. We're trying to get maximum benefit from anything with minimal. So I recommend, and this is what I do personally. You can tell I don't have a tan, I'm not burnt, and I live in Arizona, which is sunny. Although I don't go in the sun at all in the summer because it's really hot here. I would be a rotisserie chicken. But basically, I keep my face, my neck, my chest, and the back of my hands covered with sunscreen. Sunscreen is going to protect you from UVB rays. The UVB rays are the burning rays. They also are the rays that produce vitamin D. The UVA rays are the deeper penetrating rays that pierce through the windows and cause more aging. So A is aging, B is burning. B makes vitamin D. A doesn't make vitamin D. So if you're sitting by a window all day and you're getting sun on your face, you're getting a lot of aging and you're not getting any vitamin D. So that's the worst case scenario. And you can find there's a classic photo of a truck driver online just driving in the sun all day long, years and years and years, and what the cumulative effect does to the skin. So I will try to expose my torso and larger surfaces of my body to the sun based on my skin tone and where I live in latitude. I do it 10 to 15 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. And my vitamin D level with also supplementation tends to run at about 65. I try to keep it between 50 and 80. That's the zone where I think most people have the optimal health with. So you want to have your vitamin D level checked. If they say you're normal, but you're a 22, you're not normal. We want you between 50 and 80 in general, below 100, above 50, basically, but aim for 50 to 80 if you're in the US. And larger areas of sun exposure for 10 to 15 minutes if you're fair. Now, if you are African American and you live in Chicago in the winter, 10 to 15 minutes is not going to do anything. And I guarantee you're deficient. So you really have to find out where your level is. And if you're getting any burn or any tan, you're exceeding how much vitamin D you can produce. So you can produce enough vitamin D without getting any tan or any burn. And that's the sweet spot. That's the goal where we want you to be. We want you to be in the non-cosmetic areas or the non-high real estate areas of your back and your chest and your legs and get vitamin D. The other thing is you have to have sufficient magnesium or your body cannot convert the vitamin D into the active form. So most people are deficient in magnesium because our soil is deficient in magnesium. So I usually will supplement everyone with magnesium. And that's really where I kind of put most people nowadays as far as like what I'm recommending so you get the most benefits with the least risks. The other thing is I'm kind of convinced from seeing so many people over years, this is not scientifically proven, but I believe most skin cancer comes from a poor immune system because as I'm sitting here moment after moment after moment, my body's replicating and making mutations, which are errors, and trying to form cancer. And when you have a healthy immune system, your body can correct those errors of metabolism quicker than they form. And if your immune system is weak, or maybe your body has another cancer elsewhere, now you start popping up skin cancers everywhere. And I've seen this in about 5 patients through time where I've known them very well. They're ranchers with a lot of sun damage. And they started getting skin cancer after skin cancer after skin cancer. And like one of them had renal failure, one had colon cancer, one had lymphoma. So their body was busy with something else, and now their skin cancers pop up. So it's not the sun damage alone that necessarily causes the problem. It's a whole domino effect that comes into play. And if you're eating seed oils, your skin is going to respond differently to UV damage than if you're eating polyphenols, which can naturally protect you from the sun. And there's even supplements like polypodium leucotomus. There's a supplement called Inner Glow, which is a gummy, or there's one called HelioCare or
Mm-hmm.
SunSafe RX. And this all contains this fern block extract called polypodium leucotomus that actually naturally increases the SPF of your skin so you don't burn, but you still can make vitamin D.
That's
So
very interesting. I'm glad I asked that question because there was way more than I thought in the answer.
there's a lot more too. I'm going to do a whole episode on this because it's quite complicated, and I just need to figure out like how to make it simple enough for everyone. But it's what I want you to get away from this is it's not black and white, and there's not an all bad or an all good.
Right.
And we want to walk the line with most benefits and least risks at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, Jen, this was so enlightening, and there's so many things, and we could have gone many more directions and added on more and more because you have such a wealth of knowledge. But where can my listeners reach you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation. You're such a joy, and I hope I help people and answer the questions. Mostly, I'm active on Instagram at Dr. Jen Haley. You can find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two where I'm most active. And then I have a podcast. When I decide I have interesting things to talk about, I talk about it on the podcast, and that's called Radiance Revealed with Dr. Jen Haley.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there you have it. And if you are in midlife looking to get unstuck in your health and fitness and want to thrive, hop on my calendar for the Spark Breakthrough Call. In this free 20-minute, no obligation call, I will help you figure out the single action step you need to focus on to get unstuck and get results in your health journey. I will put a link in the show notes so you can hop on my calendar. But What about a journey today through the landscape of skin health, diving into essentials from protection, rejuvenating, and the holistic approach to radiant skin? And a huge thank you to Dr. Jen Haley for sharing her invaluable insights and pioneering wisdom with us today. It's conversations like these that remind us of the power of informed choices and the beauty of caring for ourselves at every stage of life. If today's episode sparked something in you, it made you look at your skincare routine a little different, or you're buzzing with thoughts and questions, then send me an email with the subject line skin to heike@heikeyates.com. I'm looking forward to reading your insights, reflections, and aha moments you have had. Your journey is unique as you are. And sharing it helps us grow together, fostering a community of radiant and empowering women. Until next time, here at the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.